Welcome to the Owner's Playbook, the podcast for visionary business owners who are building something bigger than themselves. I'm Carol Dewey, founder of Claris Advisory Partners and creator of the Navigator System. Each week, we explore the strategies that help business owners build more valuable companies, preserve more of what they create, and ultimately achieve something many entrepreneurs spend their entire careers chasing: personal freedom. Over the last few episodes, we've talked about tax strategy, the silent business partner taking a large percentage of your profits, and what I call the wealth trap. Today, we're taking the next step in that journey because there is one question every business owner eventually has to answer. If you disappeared from your business tomorrow, what would happen? Would the company continue to thrive? Would your team know what to do? Would your customers stay? Would revenue continue to come in? Or would everything grind to a halt? Today's episode is called You Don't Own a Business Until the Business Can Survive Without You. That may sound like a bold statement, but by the end of today's episode, I think you'll understand exactly why I say it. So let's go ahead and dive in. Let's check back in with Sarah. If you've been listening to the last couple of episodes, you already know her story. Sarah owns a successful marketing agency. Revenue exceeds $4 million. She is respected in her industry. Her team is talented. Clients love her. From the outside, she's the picture of entrepreneurial success. So this year, Sarah decided she was finally going to do something she'd been postponing for years. She planned a 2-week vacation with her family. No laptop, no meetings, no client calls. Just 2 weeks to recharge. On the first morning, her phone buzzed before breakfast. A client had a question. It's only 5 minutes, she told herself. Later that afternoon, one of her managers called about an employee issue. The next day, accounting needed approval on a payment. By the third day, Sarah was participating in a strategy meeting from the balcony of her hotel room. By the end of the week, she looked at her husband and said something that probably sounds familiar to many business owners. I wish I had just stayed at the office. She had left the building, but she never actually left the business. That story raises an important question. Who really owns the business? The person whose name is on the paperwork, or the business that dictates how that person spends every day? Many entrepreneurs believe ownership simply means holding the stock certificates. I see it differently. Ownership means control. If your company controls your schedule, controls your vacations, controls your stress level, and controls your ability to spend time with family, then perhaps the business owns more of you than you own of it. That's a difficult realization, especially because most entrepreneurs started their businesses seeking freedom. Freedom from corporate bureaucracy, freedom to make decisions, freedom to build something meaningful. Yet somewhere along the journey, freedom quietly became responsibility. One of the greatest threats to both business value and personal freedom is owner dependence. Owner dependence occurs when the company relies so heavily on one individual that it struggles to function without them. Sometimes it's because every important decision flows through the owner. Sometimes it's because clients insist on working directly with them. Sometimes it's because key knowledge exists only in the owner's head. And sometimes it's because the owner simply hasn't learned to let go. Ironically, owner dependence often develops because the owner is exceptionally good at what they do. Customers trust them. Employees rely on them. The owner cares deeply about quality. Those are wonderful characteristics until they become bottlenecks. Here's something many business owners don't realize. The market places a premium on transferable businesses, and it discounts businesses that revolve around one person. Imagine 2 companies with identical revenue and profit. Company A runs smoothly whether the owner is present or not. Company B depends on the owner's daily involvement. Which company would you rather buy? Most buyers choose Company A because they're purchasing a business, not buying themselves a job. That difference can significantly affect valuation. The owner often sees dedication, the buyer sees risk. The owner sees loyalty, the buyer sees dependency. The owner sees relationships, The buyer wonders whether those relationships will leave when the owner does. It's the same business viewed through two very different lenses. A year later, Sarah receives an unexpected phone call. A larger agency is interested in acquiring her company. She's excited. This could be the opportunity she's been working toward for years. The buyer reviews the financials, strong revenue, healthy profits, excellent reputation. Everything looks promising. Then the due diligence interviews begin. The buyer starts asking questions. Who manages the top client relationships? Well, Sarah. Who approves major decisions? Sarah. Who develops new business? Well, that would be Sarah. Who handles strategic planning? Again, Sarah. Who would clients call if Sarah retired next month? Silence. A few weeks later, the buyer returns with an offer, but it's far below what Sarah expected. Confused, she asks why. Their answer is simple. We love the business. We're just not convinced it exists without you. That single sentence changes everything. Sarah suddenly realizes she hasn't built a transferable company. She's built a business centered around herself. This is where our owner's wealth triangle becomes incredibly important. Remember the three sides: business value, tax efficiency, and personal freedom? Owner dependence weakens all three. It reduces business value because buyers perceive greater risk. It limits personal freedom because the owner can't step away. And it often impacts tax planning because major transitions become rushed instead of intentional. Everything is connected. That's why I encourage owners to think beyond isolated financial decisions. We're not just trying to improve one piece of the puzzle. We're trying to strengthen the entire structure. How do you know whether your business depends too heavily on you? Ask yourself these 4 questions. First, if you disappeared for 90 days, would revenue decline significantly? Second, do employees regularly wait for your approval before making important decisions? Third, would your top clients become uncomfortable if someone else served them? And fourth, can you truly disconnect for more than a week without checking emails or taking calls? If you answered yes to several of those questions, don't feel discouraged. You're in good company. Many successful business owners find themselves exactly where Sarah was. The important thing is recognizing it before it limits your options. One of the biggest misconceptions in entrepreneurship is believing freedom simply arrives after enough success. It doesn't. Freedom is intentionally designed. It's built through systems, it's built through leadership, it's built through documentation, and it's built through delegation. Every time you create a process someone else can follow, you're buying back a little of your freedom. Every time you develop another leader inside your company, you're increasing business value. Every time you remove yourself from an operational bottleneck, you're strengthening all 3 sides of the owner's wealth triangle. This isn't about becoming less important. It's about becoming less indispensable. Ironically, that's often what makes a business and its owner more valuable. The owners who eventually create both valuable businesses and meaningful freedom think differently. They stop asking, how can I do this faster? Instead, they ask, how can this be done without me? That's a transformational question, because once you begin thinking that way, your decisions change. You build systems instead of shortcuts. You develop leaders instead of followers. You document knowledge instead of keeping it in your head. You create a company that can continue growing even when you're not in the room. That's real leadership. Let's finish with the 3 practical steps. First, identify one recurring task you perform every week that someone else could eventually own. Second, choose one client relationship and intentionally begin introducing another team member into those conversations. Third, document one important process that currently exists only in your head. Don't try to transform the business overnight. Small improvements made consistently create remarkable change over time. Sarah's story isn't unusual. In fact, it's incredibly common. Most business owners don't intentionally build businesses that depend entirely on them. It happens gradually. One decision at a time, one client at a time, one problem solved personally instead of systematically. But the good news is that owner dependence can be reversed. Systems can be built, leaders can be developed, and processes can be documented. Freedom can be created. Remember, the goal isn't simply to own a successful business. The goal is to own a business that gives you choices. Because choice creates freedom. And freedom is the reason most entrepreneurs started their journey in the first place. Thank you for joining me for another episode of The Owner's Playbook. I'm Carol Dewey, founder of Claris Advisory Partners and creator of the Navigator System. If today's episode challenged the way you think about leadership, business ownership, and personal freedom, I'd encourage you to subscribe and share it with another business owner. And if Sarah's story sounded a little too familiar, perhaps this is the perfect time to begin asking a different question. Not how can I work harder, but how can I build a business that works without me? Until next time, keep building with purpose, preserve more of what you create, and always play the long game. This is The Owner's Playbook, and we'll see you on the next episode.